Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
All right. Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Greg Pitz, founder of AZ, Arizona Quantum Computing, an innovator at the intersection of quantum programming, cybersecurity, and the next generation technology. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you, Tim. Greatly appreciate you having me on.
All right. Can you give us a quick snapshot of what AZ Quantum Computing is about right now?
We do three things. First one is, as the name says, is AZ Quantum Computing, and so we do custom programming for quantum computers, any of the technologies. So every one of those. Another one is that we do, the rest of the team does the helps doing with computing as well, but I do quantum technology consulting. And so there are three verticals in quantum. Those are computing, sensors, and communication. I spend a lot of time in all of them, and so I help a variety of companies that are starting to step into quantum technologies of any sort.
Okay.
On what direction to go and start to at least initiate them on their path. And then lastly, I do quantum evangelism, and that is that I promote it. And I especially promote this state. If anyone's following me on LinkedIn or cares to look, you'll see that I published an article 2 days ago about why quantum companies should be located here, as one example of what I try to do. But I speak around the world. I, like Taylor Swift, I operate on 5 continents. And so I give presentations on quantum all over the world, and not the least of which many people are interested in is Q-Day, the day that quantum computers can decrypt RSA 2048 and ECC as well, but mainly everybody uses RSA 2048.
Okay, there's some stuff to unpack there. Let me first ask, do quantum processors perform better, or do they require specific programming?
Yes, specific programming, yes. And unfortunately, the languages haven't been abstracted for quantum computers like they have for classical computers. In other words, okay, if I wrote a program on a Mac, I can turn around and then run that on my PC or my Unix machine or a mainframe.
Okay.
The languages on quantum computers are still essentially at the corresponding assembly level concept. And so what I would write on a superconducting computer isn't going to necessarily won't work on an atom or an ion technology.
Okay, let's back up even further and talk a little bit. Can you explain to our listeners and viewers the difference between traditional chips, quantum chips, maybe neuromorphic chips, some of the different things that are out there right now, and why they matter?
Neuromorphic, I know of it. I'm not the best person to describe that to you.
Okay.
Quantum computing, though it's obviously a speed increase, the quantum computing offers a considerable amount of speed increase for intractable problems. And so the best way to describe that isn't so much to try to describe the technology, because I think it's too funny.
Yeah, get into ones and zeros versus 0 ones.
Yes, it's because I've gone to 2 mixers in the last 2 weeks, and somebody's come up to me and said, "Can you explain quantum computing to me in 5 minutes?" And I go, "No, I can't."
Okay.
Because a lot of graduates, a lot of the experts in quantum computing spend 15 years, and including graduate school, to learn it. I said, "No, I can't give you that in 5 minutes."
Right.
And so, it would be best to describe where it is or how you or I would use it.
Sure.
And so,
great.
What I'm trying to explain is the same as when you go and buy a car. Do you really care what engine it has underneath it? If it's a 3-liter or a 5-liter, do you really need to know every little bit of how it works? Is what I'm getting at. You just care that it's got an engine and it's reliable.
Right.
And so the same type of thing with a quantum computer. is that we have a variety of technologies, and the way it's primarily going to be used are three or four areas that are actually it's being used in presently. And that is, it will be the computer itself, the hardware itself will be in something like a data center. And actually it's free to use. Is quantum as a service has existed as for a couple of years, and it's free. That service for most of those the companies that provide that give you the first 10 minutes for free. And though that doesn't sound like very long, I'm finding that's about 3,000 lines a month. And that isn't, I mean, that obviously it's not operating system size, but I mean, that's not a small application size. And so it permits companies to start to get into and initiate their employees, the ones that are going to be doing the programming and possibly some of doing like using, on how to start using quantum computers. And so that's part of what I do when I'm consulting with companies to say, here's where we can start to get you into this right now for free. And then obviously there's pay packages, which then means you aren't in a queue and that you don't have to wait your turn and other things, and it runs it right away, as well as, well, there's rarely a problem on it. Those type of things. But then the other thing, meaning your code. But then the other things that it's being used for presently are combinatorial optimization. And so what that is it's just optimization, but then you're combining three or four different aspects of optimization into one. DHL and Unisys have it right up on their website. They said, hey, we use quantum computers to determine what the best way for us to deliver packages. And so let's say you're in London and you're sending me something to here in Phoenix. Once the package would get into the system, I'm going to know, and so will you and anybody else that has the code, the key, what routes it's going to take and how long it's going to take, and then, plus or minus an hour for the delivery person on this end. And if then there's a problem at some point, and it can recalculate that in a matter of moments. And so what I'm getting at is it does this the optimal way. And so it knows what airline routes to take. It knows what land routes to take to get it from you to me the quickest. There's that part of it. And then the other major one, and this is the one that is in many regards the most exciting, is material science. You with your medical background, this is where new chemicals start to come in. And so not just with pharmaceutical or other type of chemicals on that basis, but metals. And it permits us to start to simulate the way the world works at an atomic level, which presently is intractable with high performance computing, supercomputers, and so on. But
you just don't have the processing power and speed required to
exactly
play at that level.
Exactly.
Okay. Sort of big picture here still again for me. There's you kind of hinted at it, I think, is how a program will work on different chips. Now, there's not a standardization across quantum processing. Is that right?
As far as the program,
like different chips, different processing chips for standard traditional chips function the same way. The different quantum chips or processing isn't standardized for like mainstream production yet, is it?
Correct. And that's what I was saying is that if you wrote something in C or C++ or C sharp, that you could run it across all the different platforms, right. Classical platforms I was describing earlier. The quantum computers haven't reached that level of abstraction that I can turn around and run your code on. Right. On first one technology, again, an ion-based quantum computer, and then turn around and run it on a neutral atom the next moment. I'd have to do a substantial amount of reprogramming to get it to work, to migrate from one to the other.
Right. Is there going to be a consensus standard in the industry in the next few years?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if it'll be that quick, but of course it will be. I mean, it's just going to fall on the path, the steps that classical computers went on, and And quantum computers are still in their infancy in most regards. And so it just hasn't had the time to mature quite yet.
Okay. But yeah, it can't scale until it has that standardization.
No, that scale's the wrong word to use, because scale
Okay.
usually means in quantum is going from 100 qubits to 1,000 or 1,000,000. And
I just
so,
meant in terms of its use being more widespread.
yes. And so I want to make sure we draw a distinction there, because if somebody runs across the word scale, it's typically
Okay.
used in a hardware fashion, as I've just described.
Okay. Okay. So let's bring back to Arizona for a little bit here too. I mean, when you say quantum hardware and stuff, which architectures actually benefit from like Arizona's semiconductor ecosystem,
All
and
of them.
which don't? All of them do.
All of them.
Okay.
All of them. And especially, well, not especially, all of them. And that's what my article was, when I published it 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn, is that Chicago area in particular, I don't think anybody disagrees with this, is that it is by far the most advanced and has the greatest concentration of R&D and quantum computing in the world. And one of my associates started coming at me and said, "Greg, you're trying to steal my thunder." I go, "Whatever." I said, "Too bad, buddy. I got to promote my state." And so, um, but he's doing R&D and here for production because of how many companies and the entire ecostructure that we have for semiconductors and other aspects, and I'll go into that in a minute, that we have here in this state is, to me, and I'm saying this not as a biased Arizonan, is that I think a company would be, I'll put this as politely as I can, unwise if they didn't have production here. We have obviously the semiconductors. We have so many of the packaging companies here that a major one that just opened out in Goodyear, I think, is a $2 billion plant that alone already distinguishes us from almost any other state. We have Air Liquid, or however you say their name, and a few other companies that provide other parts of the ecosystem that, once again, all of it right here in one state. And as we describe, it's a neighbor, and you don't have to go fly and get these things. There's that part of it. But then the other one is that Tucson is the world capital for optics, is that U of A that's where the telescopes, that's where the mirrors are produced, designed and made. And so when it comes to any of the optics, and so that means we're getting into photon parts of quantum computing, we have the production facilities, we have the R&D facilities. We're the foremost in the world for that. The only other place that starts to get close to us is what New York is doing in Rochester with which is where the former world headquarters of Kodak was, but even there we're 2 to 3 times as great as they are.
Okay. So it's
So what I'm
not
getting
just
at
like
is that we have the infrastructure
right.
that nobody else can match.
Okay. So the access is very meaningful, not just for like TSMC or Intel, but for all the ecosystem.
For all the other aspects to it too. Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And if Arizona is like the industrial center, then what role does Silicon Valley or Boston or Europe play in that?
Well, of course, they're going to try to be doing some of that themselves as well. But then
I guess, is this a
also,
winner take all geography, or is it a distributed system?
That's what I'm getting at, is that there's still the R&D that are in these other areas in the Netherlands, the Scandinavian countries. They have a lot of companies there doing a lot of development. And so many of these companies are headquartered in these different places. And so they're not just developing the software, but they're developing their entire computers. They're doing the research and development on the different kinds of technologies that their computers have, and so on and so forth. So it isn't winner take all. And what I've been referring to in particular has been the manufacturing. And so this is where you would have, to me, it would make the most sense to have the manufacturing plants. But then this opens up the other problem, is that don't want to have our IP, our brains stolen away from us either. And so we need to expand upon that, which is part of the goal of developing the ecosystem here in Arizona.
Okay. Back out now, bigger picture again here. What are some of the misconceptions behind what quantum can and can't do, and just the industry in general?
I don't know that. I mean, I could guess one or two would probably be that if you won't have a laptop ever, most certainly in the next 10 years or so, or even 15 or 20 probably, that will be running, that will be a quantum computer, number one. Number two is doing many of the classical computations. In other words, 2 plus 2 is equal 4, and obviously bigger numbers than that is what I mean. But quantum computers are at this point, because they are so much under development, or still under development, is that to do such basic calculations, they're actually quite slow. The computer that you and I are on right now are actually quicker than they are for such basic kind of tasks. It isn't until the tasks become quite large that quantum computers find their use. And so the analogy I like to give is, think of a mainframe or a supercomputer or an HPC, high performance computer, is that where and how one uses those now is where a quantum computer will be found and used as well. Is that a pretty good, give you more of an idea?
Okay. Yeah. If somebody is listening, they want to learn more about this stuff, where are some of the best spots to go to educate themselves in quantum use and work?
There are numerous quite good books. Number one, LinkedIn. There is an extremely active quantum community on LinkedIn. Otherwise, as far as just basics, of course, there's a plethora of websites, and so doing a search to look for websites that would start to give you basic education about it would be the three areas that I would suggest that one look. Or find somebody like me and say, hey, what do you recommend for me to start to get my head around this? And it isn't going to necessarily be that easy, because Richard Feynman, one of the greatest contemporary physicists that has lived, it said that, guys and gals, this isn't a small, non-trivial topic or concept. It's quite complex. And so he said it isn't easy to explain. And so don't think that it's just, you're going to sit down and read for 5 minutes and get your head around it. It doesn't work that way, because it's literally based on the very foundation of how we understand the world works. And so you're getting immediately, if you want to go that direction, into some very deep physics.
Right. Okay. As an undergrad, I was fortunate enough to work in a lab before I got into biomedical stuff. I was doing photo excitation of different gallium arsenide states and checking out those sort of chips and stuff. And some things that they've gotten more efficient, but how close to a bottleneck are traditional chips?
First of all, you're getting out of my realm, because those are classical computers. But what I would say is, the problems we're having with data centers, and so AI and therefore quantum as well, when it starts to be produced en masse commercially, is that the way the chips are produced, they aren't the right chips for running AI. And so everybody's saying, well, these data centers are going to consume all this energy and all of this power, and energy and water and so on and so forth. It's because the demand has been placed before the technology has been developed sufficiently. And by that, what I'm getting at is that there are at least 6 that I know of technologies that have come up that can run AI thousands of times more quickly, with a lot less energy, and need a lot less cooling, which is exactly what we need, so these data centers aren't hogging all the electricity and water. And
Right,
and
right.
and it's going to be pushed through quite quickly too once those can reach commercial market, because it's going to save the data centers, companies like Google and Amazon and so on, millions and millions of dollars, because operating costs are going to plummet. So what I'm getting at
Right.
is
That's
that you'll have
huge.
a chip. It's going to be like an ASIC. Is that the chips then will be designed specifically for what the need is, and and
Right.
and I'm talking backing up and going big picture, that this is going all the way back to the design stage. And so I'm saying, here's the problem, and that's
Right.
what we engineers do, is that you throw a scenario at us and say, okay, fix this. I mean, that's what those of us that do it, I mean, we love to do it. I mean, it's
Good.
the
Yeah.
reason we do it. That's how we're trained. And so it's finally being pushed back to the point where it should have been done years ago. It's saying, okay, we've got a problem. We want to make these data centers. We want to run this AI, but GPUs, the present design of GPUs are huge. I mean, just to use them at the scale that we're trying to do just consumes so much energy and consume so much cooling, which for here in Arizona in the desert Southwest, that becomes quite expensive regarding water, and that creates a major problem. And so there's two of the parameters that the engineers need to address, and that is what's
Right.
happening, is what I'm saying.
Right. Right. That reminds me, I think it was this last week at, is it GTC? There was a big conference. I don't remember. Peter Diamandis talked about it, and I think it was Metatrends or something. I think it was the neuromorphic chips, is that they had made certain types of AI more efficient to the order of magnitude, like 1,000 times
Yes,
less
yes,
energy used, or
yes,
something like that. I mean,
yes.
you're
Yeah,
right. That's going to change everything.
yes, and I'm talking going another order of magnitude, or more than that, and
Nice.
more so than that is that to stop the heat production, because
Right.
we're in classical computers, the heat is generated primarily between the CPU and the memory, and so at least a few of those technologies, they're putting them on the same chip, and
Hmm.
so bam, and then they start using light as well, which is faster than electronics. And so combining all those together is that we have a radical reduction or a complete elimination of heat generation, and we have an extreme speed increase as well.
Right. More efficient, more
Yes.
fast. It doesn't have those electron friction in the wires. Okay. Um, so, Greg, you've had to overcome a lot of different challenges and done all sorts what were some of the biggest ones? I mean, back in the day, doing the Netscape and Apple work and so forth. Is there a couple of highlights there that helped you get to where you're at now?
I don't know about that. It was just being in Silicon Valley in the 90s. I just doing almost anything, technically, with computers, that is, and chips and hardware and so on, is that it was a different lifestyle. Uh, I tried to apply for a job, actually back here. I moved back here in '06, and I went to a company I used to work at as an intern 25 years before that. And I tried to describe to them what I was doing in Silicon Valley, and they said, we can't comprehend this. And I said, I understand it. I mean, there's nothing like it that has existed in the last 100 years or whatever. From what I understand, it London in the late 1800s, like 1870 or so, had it for like something very roughly comparable to what went on in Silicon Valley. Obviously, they didn't have computers and electronics back then, but I'm saying the economy, how
Right.
just anything that you wanted to develop at the time it was just go. Or the Danish tulips. I mean, that kind of concept. It was just everybody was trying to invent stuff, and there was so much money everywhere.
Okay. It sounds like one of the challenges in the quantum state is just education and trying to explain to people when and what it can be used for, and what it can't.
Possibly. That's a different question than I've heard before, and so I don't know how to quite answer it. Is it? I don't think it's going to be that bad because it's going to behoove any of those of us that are in the industry to educate those that would be using it. Again, anyone that would normally be using a superconductor or a high performance computer of some sort, we're going to be bringing that usage, make it easier for everyone to be able to access that at that level. Again,
Okay.
think of a mainframe and think of a supercomputer. The companies that are trying to do those kind of things that are running into intractable problems or ones that, hey, I can do this, but it takes it 12 hours to run. They can turn around and run around a quantum computer and have it done in a few minutes instead. Those type of applications. So
Right.
again, it isn't going to be like you're going to use your spreadsheet to use to for any calculations with quantum. Again, your classical computer is better for that. And so maybe this will help understand or answer your question. Is that even though this word is used as hybrid, meaning that when quantum computers are run, they're run with classical computers like an HPC of some sort. I'm saying the way a standalone quantum computer works is that it has a classical computer as part of the input, and it always has a classical computer as the output, because that data needs to be turned into a format that you or I as a human can understand. And so it doesn't do those type of calculations as well as a classical computer does. And so all quantum computers are hybrid in that regard.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Is that one of the bigger challenges for the industry in the next several
No,
years?
okay. Well, you're starting to get
It's
into
part of the
things.
R&D aspect of it.
Not so much the classical computer input or output, but it's starting into a deeper physics question. And I don't want to try
Okay.
to start to touch that here, is because there is some huge, and I mean exponential gains for learning how to fully be able to utilize
Right. To
the inputs
interface with.
that can be used on quantum computers. And by that, what I mean is that some labs have gotten 30 terabytes of data on just 40 or 50 qubits. I mean, that's just an insane amount of data that can be placed into the memory of a qubit. Did I lose you?
No, well, a little bit, but, but I'm technically still here.
Okay, good.
Um, so,
And, and so
so
by and so by terabytes is we're using
sure.
gigabytes now, and so 1,000 times what a
Yep.
gigabyte is what I'm saying with the terabytes.
Sure.
And so what I'm saying is just insane amount of data. It's the kind of amount of data you get from when a spacecraft goes into outer space, and we've got all this terabytes of data, and we can't use it because we can't, as humans, uh, figure it. It's too much data for us as a human to be able to get at to understand what's going on. And sure, AI starts to do something like that too, but the quantum computers, what I'm getting at
Right.
is the hardware part of it can
Okay.
get that much data inside of it, and developing a way that we can get that much data into it in a quick fashion. The only thing that's been able to do it thus far is through quantum sensors, and that hasn't been developed sufficiently yet.
Okay. Okay. So there's yes, a lot of interesting stuff in the near
Yes, very
future
much
for
so.
that.
Very
Speaking of
much
the near
so.
future, Greg, you have a couple of events coming up. Can you tell us about those?
Friday, December 4th, I am organizing a quantum and bioscience event that will hopefully be at the PBC, the Phoenix Bioscience Center. That's where I'm mainly targeting that area downtown that we have that is one of the largest bioscience centers in the entire United States. And so to have quantum companies that are developing things on the bioscience side give presentations all day long. And then 13 months from now will be the next World Quantum Day, and I hope to have an event going on. I'm presently targeting 4 days, but that would be general topics. It's most certainly a day of STEM. Saturday will be for the general public so that we can explain to a lot more people, elaborating on the questions that you've been asking. And so that you can actually start to see how many of the computers work, because many of the manufacturers have some very interesting display models of how their computers work, and they're quite interesting.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, so that'd be people from around the globe attending that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very cool. All right, well, Greg, we're out of time. Might have to do some homework and have you back on with some more at some point. If people would like to connect with you,
I'd love to be back here. And so the easiest way to connect me is just go to my website, and so that's azquantumcomputing.com. Unfortunately, my website has a problem, and my ISP is unable to solve it, and either am I. And so we should have put the www in front of it. .azquantumcomputing.com.
All right, made a note of that for the show notes. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. That was a lot. Thanks, Greg. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Thank you very much, Greg Pitz, for joining me and sharing your insights into quantum here in Phoenix.
Thanks for having me on, Tim. Greatly appreciate it.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.